Oh yeah, these are.
It's just fun just opening these, actually.
Honestly, yeah.
It's just fun just opening these, actually. Honestly, yeah.
So today, the latest shot in the Great Loot Box War was fired. It's been raging pretty heavily in places like Europe. The big story from last year was when Belgium actually banned loot boxes from games sold in that region. And now the US appears to be the latest war front. As a big fat video game nerd myself, this pleases me greatly. A new bill has been introduced that would ban loot boxes as well as pay-to-win microtransactions from being sold to minors. In a report by Jason Schreier over at Kotaku, Senator Josh Hawley, a Missouri Republican, today announced a bill that would ban loot boxes and pay-to-win microtransactions in, quote, games played by minors, a broad label that the senator says will include both games designed for kids under 18 and games, and again, this is important, games whose developers knowingly allow minors to engage in microtransactions. The bill is called the Protecting Children from Abusive Games Act, which I love. You want to have something that gets the attention of normies? Put protect the children, of course, in the title. We're always all about protecting the children. And abusive as well. That's a double whammy. And you're good to go. Candy Crush, interestingly enough, is one of the main games they're highlighting. Again, I think that is a good one for the normies, as that's something a lot of people are familiar with. It says here this bill will also likely apply to a host of online games that feature loot boxes and other ways in which players can spend money for real benefits. A quote from Hawley about the bill: "When a game is designed for kids, game developers shouldn't be allowed to monetize addiction." Can we just get a round of applause for that? I know you're sitting in your mom's basement alone, but goddamn, do I like that. And when kids play games designed for adults, they should be walled off from compulsive microtransactions. Game developers who knowingly exploit children should face legal consequences. An update was made later on to the article stating that the lobbying group, the Entertainment Software Association, sent over a statement shortly after this bill was introduced, stating, quote, "Numerous countries, including Ireland, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, determined that loot boxes do not constitute gambling. We look forward to sharing with the Senator the tools and information the industry already provides that keep control of in-game spending in parents' hands. Parents already have the ability to limit or prohibit in-game purchases with easy-to-use parental controls." And we'll see about that. As we see in that response, while think of the children is always a great rallying cry, the argument will come up that parents are able to keep their kids from buying them with parental controls, but that really hasn't stopped any of the other video game debates out there, has it? Specifically violent ones. Like, I'm not allowed to say, oh, well, you're not allowed to sell violent video games to minors, so case closed, right? And I think this is, more importantly, like we saw with the stuff in Belgium, just the beginning. This article also notes that there was an investigation last fall where the Federal Trade Commission promised to investigate loot boxes following a letter from Senator Maggie Hassan, a Democrat from New Hampshire, that she wrote in the wake of 2017's string of games featuring the heavy usage of predatory microtransactions. She lists Middle-earth: Shadow of War, Star Wars Battlefront 2, a favorite, and that's really what I think historically will go down as the breaking point. Battlefront 2 and the single-player Shadow of War having loads of loot boxes really brought a lot of eyes on the debate when they both launched, and it really comes down to, in my opinion, that these companies just got too greedy. I mean, microtransactions had been around for quite a while, but it's around that time that they ramped up so much and became so exploitative that people couldn't look away anymore. And I think in the US, even if this doesn't get passed, like I said, it's a good start, again, to bringing this conversation to the forefront and to make normies understand and perhaps care more about it. That's why, like I said, I love the name, the Protecting the Children from Abusive Games Act, as I feel that's something that is going to grab people's attention right away. What are these games that are abusing the children? That's not right. And as far as the, quote, games played by children, again, that's pretty broad. It doesn't necessarily mean a kid's game and may have repercussions on tons of titles. Like, perhaps that would mean any game that has a loot box system automatically gets an M rating and can't be sold to minors. which many devs do strive for that T rating to not run into any parental issues. It could put a lot of pressure on the creator end to make sure kids aren't getting access to loot boxes at all. Like, it would seem to me by the wording, again, this isn't necessarily about getting parents' permission. They don't want kids being coerced by loot boxes at all. Like, if you think about it with actual gambling, you can't just have your parents say, it's okay, my kid can play at the blackjack table, or with drinking perhaps. Oh, it's all right, my 15-year-old is allowed to drink. No, the law says they can't. So it could make keeping loot boxes in games difficult waters to navigate if your game's played by a lot of minors. At the end of the day, the gaming industry is becoming just so out of control with this stuff, so heavily profit-driven, that I feel like we may need regulations like this at some point to just save it at all, to at least save AAA games. You know, we have stories like the Activision one, right, where they recorded record profits last year and still laid off like 800 people. So it's clearly not just this, oh, games are expensive, they need to put loot boxes in the game to turn a profit, BS excuse that we hear all the time. No, they need loot boxes to turn the most profit. And as they are learning with mobile games, for instance, they can make even more profit with garbage games that only require a few people to make and then just fill them up with loot boxes. Then you also are saving money from having a smaller staff. Plenty of great games are still being made without them, okay, and making plenty of money, but for companies like an EA, like an Activision, if the game doesn't make all the money, it's useless. We're already starting to see that model kind of crumble under its own weight with like the disastrous launches of games like Anthem, but it's not stopping them from trying time and time again. You only need one big loot box fest to catch on for every couple failures to make a large profit. EA, for instance, is probably going to be okay as long as they keep having people blow their life savings on FIFA microtransactions, and legislation like this could force them to get in line quicker. Anyway, with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know your thoughts on this proposed loot box bill in the comments. Do you think it'll get passed? And what effect do you think it would have on the gaming industry as a whole? Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this discussion of this new US proposed loot box bill. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. And if you want to keep the conversation going, hit me up on Twitter @JohnnyZakari. And join my Discord, Shy Guy and Friends. Link to both in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching.